She married a 73-year-old millionaire. Days later, she was shocked by his last wish. A young woman stands alone in a lavish bedroom, staring at a letter with trembling hands. Her heart pounds as she reads the last words her husband ever wrote. She thought she had it all, a life of luxury, wealth beyond her wildest dreams. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to discover. Emily had never imagined her life would take such an unpredictable turn. At 26, she was just a struggling waitress in a small diner on the outskirts of the city, barely making enough to cover her rent. Her dreams of becoming a writer had been buried beneath the weight of overdue bills and her mother's mounting medical expenses. Every day felt the same. Waking up exhausted, forcing a smile for customers, counting the measly tips at the end of her shift, and returning home to a cramped apartment that held no promise of a better future. But then, one fateful evening, everything changed. A sleek black car pulled up outside the diner, and an elderly man stepped out. Richard Harrington, 73 years old, a billionaire, and one of the most powerful men in the city. The air inside the diner seemed to shift as he walked in, his presence commanding immediate attention. Emily barely noticed him at first, too busy wiping down tables. But as she turned, she found his piercing blue eyes locked onto her. There was something unreadable in his gaze, a mixture of curiosity and calculation. He sat in the corner, watching her with an unsettling intensity. When she finally approached his table, he spoke in a calm yet authoritative tone. "Marry me, and you'll never struggle again." Emily almost laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "Excuse me?" Richard remained expressionless. "1 year. Be my wife. No questions asked." She blinked in disbelief. "Is this some kind of prank? Because if it is, it's a terrible one." He slid a contract across the table. "I don't joke. You sign this, and your life changes overnight. $1 million up front. Access to my estate, my wealth. In return, you play the role of my wife. Publicly, at least. I do not expect anything else in return." Emily's hands trembled as she picked up the thick packet of papers. This was absurd. Who in their right mind would propose such an arrangement? And yet, as crazy as it sounded, she couldn't ignore the reality staring her in the face. Her mother's declining health, the looming threat of eviction, the endless cycle of hopelessness. She swallowed hard. "Why me?" Richard leaned forward. "Because you're an unknown. No past scandals, no ambitions of social climbing, and more importantly, I need someone who won't fall in love." His words stung, even though she barely knew him. "That's awfully cynical of you." He smirked. "I'm a businessman, Emily. Cynicism is just realism with better branding." Every instinct screamed at her to walk away. But desperation makes people do things they never imagined. With a deep breath, she picked up the pen and signed. The wedding was extravagant, held at a sprawling estate with chandeliers glittering like captured stars. Emily felt like an imposter in the designer gown, standing beside a man who barely looked at her. The guests whispered behind their champagne glasses, their eyes filled with speculation. Look at her, so young, so beautiful. She's just after his money. Can you blame her? He'll be dead in a few years, and she'll be set for life. Emily's fingers clenched around her bouquet. She had anticipated judgment, but hearing it out loud was unbearable. Richard, however, remained unfazed, standing beside her with the same unreadable expression he had worn the day he proposed. During their wedding dance, he leaned down and murmured, "Let them talk. Their opinions won't change anything." Easy for you to say, she shot back. You're not the one they're calling a gold digger. He smirked. No, but I am the one who just gave them 1,000,000 reasons to be envious. For a brief moment, she almost laughed. Marriage to Richard was nothing like she expected. Their interactions were formal, almost businesslike. He spent most of his days locked in his study, buried in financial reports, while she wandered through the vast, empty mansion, feeling like a guest in her own life. There were moments, small, fleeting instances, when she caught glimpses of something beneath his hardened exterior. The way his fingers lingered on old photographs, the way his gaze softened when he thought no one was watching. But just as quickly, he would retreat behind his walls again. Then came the night that changed everything. Emily had been restless, unable to sleep. As she wandered through the halls, she found Richard in his study, staring at an old book. "You're still awake?" she asked. He looked up, his usual mask of indifference slipping for just a second. "Couldn't sleep?" She hesitated before stepping inside. "What are you reading?" He handed her the book. It was well worn, the pages yellowed with age. "My late wife's favorite," he admitted. "She always said stories could heal even the most broken hearts. I never believed her. But after she passed, I found myself coming back to her books." Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. "Is that why you married me? To fill the void she left?" Richard didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. "I married you because I didn't want to die alone." Something inside her shifted. From that night on, their relationship changed. Slowly, cautiously, they began to open up to each other. Richard told her about his regrets, his mistakes, the things he wished he had done differently. Emily, in turn, shared her own fears, her struggles, her dreams of being a writer, the feeling of always being one step away from giving up. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Richard turned to her. "You should write again." She laughed softly. "I wouldn't even know where to start." He held her gaze. "Start with the truth. It's always the best story." For the first time since their marriage, Emily felt something other than emptiness. Then, just as suddenly as their connection had deepened, it all came crashing down. Richard collapsed in his office. The doctors confirmed what he had known for months. His time was running out. No amount of money could change that. Lying in bed, his voice was weaker than she had ever heard. "Emily, my last wish." She gripped his hand, tears blurring her vision. "Anything. Just tell me." He pressed a sealed letter into her palm. "Live." And then he was gone. After the funeral, Emily opened the letter, expecting financial instructions or final arrangements. Instead, she found words that shattered her. "Emily, you saved me. Not with money, not with duty, but with your kindness. I was never supposed to live this long. I was a dying man long before I met you. But you made me believe in something again." Tears streamed down her face as she read the final lines. "My last wish is for you to live, truly live. I bought you a publishing house. It's yours now. Write, Emily. Tell the stories the world needs to hear. Don't waste another second of your life on things that don't set your soul on fire." Stunned, she discovered that Richard had secretly arranged for her book to be published, the one she had been writing in secret, their story intertwined with her own. Months later, Emily stood at the grand opening of Harrington Publishing, holding her first book, her story. She had married a man she never loved, for reasons she never understood. But in the end, he had given her something priceless: freedom, purpose, a second chance at life. She no longer needed wealth, no longer needed validation. She had found her true self, and that was worth more than all the riches in the world. As she looked up at the sky, she whispered, "Thank you, Richard." Her heart was finally at peace. For more heartwarming and inspiring stories, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.